So I would like to introduce Michael McGibben, who's the Divisional Dean for Student Success and professor in the Department of Earth Science here at UCR. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm going to sort of set up the talk for Sue about her dynamic genome program by talking about the first-year engagement and second-year engagement programs that we run in the Science College. And sort of the takeaways are that we're using the first year and pretty soon the second year curriculum as a scaffolding to hang a lot of these early interventions on. I'm going to show you how effective they are for our demographic of students, which is dominated by first-generation low-income students. And then I thought a lot of you might be interested in how you get buy-in and deal with some of the logistics of scaling things up to accommodate early interventions for a large number of incoming students. So I think some of these demographics were mentioned by Cindy at the beginning, but I'll just reiterate them. This year we had a record number of freshmen coming into the Science College, 2,000. 60% are first generation, 50% are low income as defined by being Pell eligible, 37% are underrepresented minorities, and the gender distribution is about 1-to-1. So that's the student body we're dealing with. This is the racial and ethnic composition. The Hispanic Latino population is very rapidly growing. It actually jumped by 50% this fall. And the African American population jumped by 100% this fall. This is a snapshot of last fall. But the diversity in our college mimics that of the campus overall. We're an HSI, and we're among the most diverse of all the Tier 1 four-year publics across the country. As far as how they're distributed in our majors, we're completely dominated by biology and biochemistry and neuroscience majors, so very heavy life science focus. So this is the distribution of all of our students last fall. We topped 5,000 students for the first time last year, and we will come close to 6,000 over the next year, so growing very rapidly. So we piloted first-year learning communities for our freshmen largely as an effort to increase pass rates in lower division gateway courses. The way we group them is by their math placement and their type of major. That way we can put them in the same classes all year. They're starting off at the same level of math preparation, so they'll move from math into chemistry and biology at the same rate. We cluster them into groups of 24 students. We don't force them in. They have to opt in at freshman orientation. And we don't accommodate all the students that want to get in, so we have a control group of equally motivated students who are not put into learning communities. So they literally are going to the same lecture, lab, and discussion all year long in their core math and science courses. So they're spending about 15 hours a week together as a group of 24 students, and it really forces them to bond as a social group and identify as science majors, which I think gets to what was talked about earlier. I think that's really important. They also have a peer role model that is with them every quarter doing peer tutoring, what we call supplementary instruction. And that, of course, has bi-directional benefits both for the mentorees and the mentor. So they're spending 2 hours a week with that peer tutor, and then that peer tutor is going to lecture with them as well. And then finally, in the fall, we have the faculty mentor the group of 24 students for an hour a week, and an academic advisor mentor them for an hour a week. And that kind of covers the why and the how to be a scientist. So the faculty mentoring seminar is designed to get them to know that research faculty are different than the instructors they had in high school, very focused on research, and kind of break down the ice. The faculty only have to teach one of these seminars once every 4 years. Some teach more often, some never. Some of them we don't want them to teach freshmen. So it works out all right. So the chairs provide me with a list every year of the faculty that have come up to be eligible, and we assign them. To set the example, both the dean and then all the divisional deans, or associate deans as they're called in some places, also teach a learning community seminar. So I'm teaching one right now, and so is our dean, and so is one of our other divisional deans. We provide a faculty handbook if they want it, and it's got examples of the seminar style that's been used before, but we give them complete academic freedom. We do not dictate to the faculty how to run their seminar. They have complete academic freedom, and we encourage them to bring in guest speakers, grad students, postdocs, or people from units around campus that they want to bring in. So the faculty really do control this seminar and have complete freedom in how they want to run it. The academic advising seminar is really designed to get them to trust their academic advisor, which means if they get into trouble later, they're a lot more likely to go to them if they get to know them from the beginning and learn to trust them. We have mandatory centralized developmental academic advising in our college, and I oversee all the advising. They're all professionals. They all have master's degrees in science, counseling, education, or psychology. And they focus on a lot of the practical things it takes to get through the university program, so study skills, curriculum planning, time management. They work basically as the TA for the faculty instructor in the seminar, and they will teach 2 or 3 sections for 2 or 3 different faculty every fall. And the text they're using is Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective College Students. So this is the advising seminar portion, and they focus on overcoming personal challenges and then overcoming social challenges. And this is really critical for our first generation low-income students. They really need this kind of advice. They even spend a while talking to them about how to manage a budget and balance a checkbook, and they need that advice. So this is a 2-unit course, the faculty part and the advisor part, and it's graded SNC. And the grade is usually based on attendance, with 80% attendance required. We also have an optional first-year active and research engagement options for them, and this gets to what Sue will talk about in the next talk. So Biology 20, the dynamic genome, is an active learning DNA extraction and gene sequencing research program, and that's aimed at most of the students who are life science majors. It also substitutes for the intro biology general lab the first quarter. If they're a physical or mathematical science major, we have explorations in molecular science, and they can choose to either do computer modeling of chemical bonds, or they can do field sampling of atmospheric gases and some environmental chemistry. And we're constantly looking for ideas from some of our other faculty to develop these kinds of modules. So the key is they're getting this active learning experience as a freshman in this small group doing team-based research. At the same time, they're feeling lost in these introductory huge courses, and it kind of gives them an impetus for grinding it out in those courses. If they see what we call the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, they see the fun of doing research in a small group, and it makes them really more willing to grind it out in these large lower division courses. So this again, I think gets back to the identity issue of being a scientist and seeing that very early in the fun of doing research. So we have to reserve the seats for our clusters in the spring. So we have to predict how many of our students are going to place into which math levels, and that's often challenging. And then the matriculating freshmen and their parents or families attend summer orientation here, and we do a sales pitch for them, both the parents and the students, to get into the learning communities. And so we plug the fact that they're going to have a peer group of science students to join, a set of buddies, essentially that replace the social group they lost when they left high school. We talk about that they will get guaranteed seating in all of their core math and science courses for the freshman year. We talk about the statistics, which I'll show you on their improved GPA retention and graduation rates, and then we really push the opportunity to do early research, and that's a big draw. We set this up so that we have a properly constructed control group, so we select students by random lottery from the applicants. So we artificially cap the number of seats that are available at each of our 8 orientation sessions. And so there's always a small group of students who apply to get in, but we don't accommodate them, and that's our control group. That's great as far as our statistics, but the parents get really mad when their students don't get into the learning community. So that's the downside of that. I do have to convince the parents that they can get many of the same services that they would get in the learning community if they're not in it, but they have to be very proactive, and they're worried about that. We do not do holistic review yet on this campus, so we place students into math. After they've been admitted, they test for math and English readiness, and we place them accordingly. And we require that the students in learning communities must be placed into either pre-calculus or calculus to be in the learning community. If they place into intermediate algebra, we do not put them in learning communities, and that's why we'll never get 100% of our freshmen into learning communities. So we've basically made an intent to treat clinical drug trial analysis of our learning communities over the past several years. So it's only the eligible group that is the treatment group, and we have a placebo group, which is the waitlisted students who we purposely did not accommodate. And so we think we've corrected for motivational self-selecting into the learning communities that way. So here are statistics for the GPA at the end of the first quarter after they've gotten all of the components of the learning community, including the faculty seminar and the advising seminar. And so the upper line are the students who completed the learning community for the entire year. The middle line are students who wanted into learning communities but were waitlisted. And the bottom line is students who either did not apply or they dropped out of the learning community at some time during the year. And we're seeing about a 0.3 GPA bump versus the control group, which is the middle group, in terms of their first quarter GPA.
Sorry, on the previous slide, what are the different columns there? 07, 08.
Those are the entering years, 07 fall, 08. So we piloted this for 6 years. Okay. Here is first year retention, and we're seeing sustained retention at 95% or above for the students in the learning community versus 85 to 90 for the control group. And then here's 4-year grad rates. We don't have Berkeley's grad rates, but these are our grad rates, and we're seeing a 4-year graduation rate now pretty much sustained at over 50% for students in the learning community versus lower to mid-30s for the control group. We see that 20 percentage point gap sustained even after 6 years, so it's the same gap. 65% for students in learning communities, about 45% for the control group. We've been able to expand this program since our 6-year pilot. So we got 2 large grants. One was an NSF STEP grant for 5 years starting in 2013. That provided funding for more TAs, more advisors, and student affairs staff to manage and coordinate all of this. Our goal is 80% first-year participation by 2018. We may meet that goal. We're at 1,100 participants this fall. And then we also got, Sue and I got the Howard Hughes Medical Institute grant that she'll talk about next. And that's supporting the Bio20 early research engagement and a lot of the peer mentoring efforts for the life science students, and also a second-year career mentoring program with our alumni that I'll talk about briefly. So we are scaling this up. So this was our pilot that we ran for 6 years, showing the number of students and the percent of the incoming freshman class that we got into learning communities for the pilot. And then since the STEP grant started here and the HHMI grant, we've been ramping up very quickly the percentage of freshmen who are in this program. So we're now, as of this fall, we're over 1,000 freshmen participating in these learning communities. More encouraging trends. As a campus, UCR is somewhat unique in that there's no graduation rate difference between ethnic groups, but that's not true if you look in the STEM colleges. There is a difference, as we all know. Fortunately, we are starting to close that gap. In 2014, for the first time, the percentage of URM students enrolled equaled the percentage of CNES degrees granted. So we're seeing this gap close. Obviously, we want to see several more years of these data, and I will soon have 2015 in about 2 months. But it's a very encouraging trend. We have begun second-year interventions, and we're going to scale those up as well. So we have a workshop called Escape, which is a sophomore early career exploration and mentoring program that's funded off of the HHMI grant. That's an all-day Saturday workshop. We attract them with breakfast, lunch, and an iPad mini raffle. But we bring in our alumni who are in industry, government, academia, and healthcare, and they have panels about careers in those areas. And then we have an hour and a half, basically a speed dating lunch where they can move from table to table and talk to different alumni, and that works out really well, and the students really like that. And then we bring our science ambassadors in, who are mainly juniors and seniors, who are involved in undergraduate research, and they talk about how to get involved in undergraduate research. I think we all know in this room, they really listen to the near peers. I mean, near peers are really phenomenal in terms of the impact they have on them. And then we finish up with an introduction to searching for a career, starting to think about doing research, a resume, and interviews. And this is sophomore year. It's never too soon to start this information for. We then got a scholarship grant, an STEM scholarship grant for 5 years that started this month, and that is to support sophomore research and internship opportunities. And it's aimed at low-income first-generation sophomores, which again is a majority of our population. And the theory was it would reduce the need for them to work off campus part-time and make it more likely that they would continue to do research and internships. It has a heavy peer mentoring component associated with it, and then research skills workshops to prepare them for launching into really more heavily research in the upper division. And then we tie that into a STEM workforce engagement at the local graduate institute, where they will interact with their graduate students who are going in to biotech and other STEM fields. We're planning second-year learning communities. That's my next goal. That'll be my next IUSE proposal going in January. We're going to hang that on the scaffolding of organic chemistry and physics courses, which are what most of our life science students take in their second year. That, again, is going to have a heavy peer mentoring and tutoring component to it. Faculty seminars on the importance of science to society, a research skill workshop, research opportunity scholarships, and then again, an alliance with local industry and STEM professional schools like KGI. So we've really focused almost all of these student success programs on the first 2 years, starting with the freshmen, and we're now moving into second-year programs. So there are lots of challenges and solutions to scaling up. So you have to get buy-in from 4 different levels to do something on a scale. The students, the staff, the faculty, and the campus administration. You have to convince the campus to let you reserve all those math and science courses and hold the seats in spring for the next fall. So I thought I'd talk about getting buy-in from these different groups. So student buy-in is relatively easy. We reserve the seats before the quarter starts. They can't change their schedule. So if they go into the learning community, they're picking a fixed schedule for their entire freshman year, and they can't change it. And that's a challenge to students who commute or have to work part-time, and their work schedule may vary. So sometimes students won't opt in because of those issues. But I try and show them and their families the outcomes and the benefits in terms of the GPA boost and the grad rates. I emphasize the social value of having an instant first-year peer group. With the students, early hands-on research opportunity is a big draw, just like they've found at the UCLA program. We give the students who complete the learning community priority in awarding summer research scholarships at the end of the freshman and sophomore year. And then we use a lot of near-peer messaging at recruiting and orientation events to really push the learning communities and early research engagement. And again, to me, the power of near peers is just phenomenal. Academic advisor buy-in was easy. We incorporated it into their job description. Step number 1. But they're excited because they get to work with different faculty as being their TA, and they really like that. It's a development advising opportunity for them because they've got a captured audience for 10 weeks. In a small group. They realize the value of building student trust early on as an academic advisor. It gets them out of the office because they get to go do the seminar, so that's fun. And it is a career advancement component for them if they want to move up the ladder of student affairs. So getting academic advisor easy. Buy-in was not a problem, but certainly having centralized advising like we have in our college makes it very easy. If you're in a situation where you don't have centralized advising, this would be more challenging. Faculty buy-in, of course, was the hardest. At the pilot scale, it wasn't a problem because we only needed about 15 faculty, and you can always find at a university our size 15 very dedicated faculty who who are really focused on undergraduate student success, and that would be people like me and Sue and Cindy and many of our newer faculty who are in the room. Scaling up to 50 plus faculty involvement is more challenging. So I had to stay in their face a lot with the data over several years to convince them that this was really having an impact on student success. A lot of faculty say, well, what's the use of me talking to a freshman? I'm not going to have that much influence on them. And I tell them I think it's a long-term impact. I think it sort of breaks down the mystique of what a professor is, and that may make it easier for them to talk to a professor later on when they're interested in research. So you may not see the immediate impact on your freshmen right when you're teaching them, but I think it has a long-term impact on them. As I mentioned, the dean messaged that it's important enough for the college mission, and she would consider it at merit review time, and she does it herself, and the associate deans, we do it ourselves. The chairs find it pretty easy because they only have to assign a faculty member on average once every 4 years. We're adding a lot more faculty, and so that will make it easier as well. But you do have to bribe them. So we did offer eventually instructional credit, so they get a quarter of a course credit for the 1 unit. So if they wanted to do 2 seminars or 4 seminars in the fall, they're basically buying themselves out of a course if they want to do that. And then I told them, if you want undergraduates to work in your laboratory, we're going to prioritize the scholarships we give out to undergraduates to do lab research to faculty who've participated in the freshman learning community. So I had to pull a lot of different strings with the faculty, including some bribing to get the buy-in. But I've got the buy-in. I've got 53 faculty this fall who are participating and more who want to. So. Institutional buy-in is basically via the success and the recognition of the program. So other colleges had tried bits and pieces of the learning community, so they might have had just the faculty advising seminar, or they might have co-enrolled their freshmen in just a fall quarter class, but the results were very inconclusive. Our 5-year pilot showed you really needed this multifaceted constellation to have a true impact, especially for our first generation students. Winning the 2 big expansion grants got the attention of the administration. It also prompted our alumni to donate more money for undergraduate research scholarships, and they continue to be interested in doing that. Our learning community program success was one of the reasons UCR became a founding member of the University Innovation Alliance, which is funded by a number of foundations. And then finally, the White House Initiative on Excellence in Education for Hispanics recognized our science learning communities as one of the 2015 national bright spots. So all this has helped convince the powers that be that this is a good program, and they now all talk about it when they are out talking. So everybody always asks, how are you going to sustain this when the grants go away? And that's always the big challenge. So we have a new cost recovery model budget process, and the revenue to the college is going to be driven in part by retention and grad rates, and that will generate money to retain a lot of these staff that are, or my theory is it will help us retain a lot of these staff that are right now funded off the grant. We're launching a major new development campaign, which hopefully will bring in more money from alums and donors. And I'm constantly arguing to the dean very recently that these early engagement efforts are critical to our increased revenue stream under the new budget model. The learning communities are a major draw in student and parent recruitment, and undergraduate research scholarships are a major lure for getting alumni donations as part of the campaign. So those are all the arguments I'm making to my dean and to the upper administration to sustain this program. I just wanted to give you 3 references. If you want to design first year or second year student success programs, there's some really good resources out there that have come out just in the last few years. So Greenfield's book on developing first-year programs is a really good resource. Hunter et al. On sophomores, and then Vincent Tinto's book on completing college and institutional action, I think are really good resources to start with if you want to look at the data and get some ideas. And with that, I'm happy to take questions. Sure.
Maybe this even gets to something that Diane might have talked about if she were here, but how are you seeing this being incorporated into the promotion process?
So that's kind of nascent. The dean has made clear that she will consider faculty commitment to lower division student success during the merit and promotion cycle. So she has told the chairs and told the faculty she thinks it's an important commitment for all of our faculty to make. How she would quantitatively do that is certainly the part that maybe isn't quite clear to people. But you know, maybe if you're on the edge and you've done something like this, it would help. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
One of the things you face when you're developing these things is sort of an ethical dilemma. I don't know how much you struggled with that, but you know, you're seeing huge improvements and you're leaving students out.
Yes.
And you're getting to 80%, I guess, by 2018. You got to go to 100% really fast, right? Or you are really mistreating students in a way.
So we'll never get to 100%. For example, student athletes, their practice and travel schedules are so horrendous. The students who place in intermediate algebra, their success rate in our college has been 10%. And so the ethical dilemma I faced was deciding whether or not to try and include them in the freshman learning communities or not. I would like to because it would improve their success on campus, maybe not in
Because
STEM.
they're disadvantaged kind of at the beginning, and then they continue to be.
And I agree. And so we've developed our college with Cindy and undergraduate education. We have an early assist program that's sort of a quasi-learning community for students who place in intermediate algebra. It's not the full suite of components I talked about, but it is a boost for them, and we're seeing some positive impacts from that. So, but you're right. I have a moral obligation to try and get 100% if I can.